This presentation discusses the problems of dog abandonment and animal cruelty in Kathmandu, Nepal, the Himalayan nation adjacent to India that is famous for having the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest. Kathmandu has about 2 million people and may have as many as 100,000 free-roaming dogs or street dogs. Nepal is one of the poorest countries in the world with a population of about 30 million people and a per capita income of about $1,200. Estimates of the number of stray dogs is complicated because many dogs who appear to be stray are owned by people who let them wander loose. Several studies have concluded that many of the dogs living on the street are former pets who have been abandoned by their owners. It is these abandoned dogs that are the subject of this hot topic presentation. Street dogs create multiple problems for public health and safety because rabies is endemic in Nepal, and the legitimate fear of getting bitten by a rabid dog leads to conflicts between humans and dogs, and it is often the source of incidents of cruelty towards street dogs. Pet ownership in Nepal is unlike it is in more developed countries, with many people believing that adequate dog care just involves feeding the dog without giving much thought to their medical needs. Many people also think that confining a dog inside a house or a yard is cruel, and some even think that surgical sterilization is cruel and unnatural. It is common to see community members feeding leftover food to street dogs, and some people take it upon themselves to feed the roaming dogs in their neighborhood, using their very limited income. Most people prepare a mix of rice, meat, vegetables, and lentils. Dogs are often seen sleeping outside the gate of their owner or at the home of the last person who fed them. A 2010 study found that dogs were often abandoned because of medical or behavioral issues, or they had a female dog with puppies. Lack of access to veterinary care, lack of money, loss of a job, a problem with housing, or an illness in the human family were all reasons given for getting rid of a pet. Since Kathmandu doesn't have a permanent city-funded municipal dog shelter, dogs often end up being abandoned as a last resort. Several of the animal nonprofits have shelters, but they exist primarily to serve the large population of stray dogs in the city, and they don't generally accept dogs relinquished by their owners. Still, many people leave their pets at these shelters in the middle of the night or just abandon the dog on the street, hoping that someone will care for it. Many abandoned dogs are believed to have originated from dog breeders, either directly, such as former breeding dogs, or indirectly, such as those who are abandoned family pets with health or behavioral issues. A report prepared by Animal Nepal, one of the leading animal charities in Nepal, concluded that the dog breeding industry was probably the source of many breed dogs living on the street. About a third of those surveyed in the study who were breeding and selling dogs were veterinarians, and over half of those selling dogs were practicing veterinary technicians called paravets in Nepal. Dog breeding in Nepal is currently unregulated with no oversight by the government or the veterinary community. Many purebred dogs are produced in what are locally called puppy farms. Nepal also has backyard breeders, private citizens looking to make extra money to support their families. Puppies are commonly sold directly to consumers at the puppy farms or advertised on social media, and many are also sold to pet shops. People who live in poverty, especially in Nepal, are not accustomed to visiting a doctor for preventive health checkups, and the idea of taking a pet dog or one of the community dogs that they feed to see a veterinarian is almost unheard of. Many people cannot even afford to see a human doctor, so they generally will not take a dog to see a veterinarian unless it is very sick or badly injured. Even if someone did want to take a dog to a veterinarian, there are practical problems to just getting there. Private car ownership is uncommon, and dogs generally aren't allowed in taxis or on buses. Motorcycles and motor scooters are a common form of transportation, and it is not uncommon to see two people riding on a motorbike with a dog being carried in the passenger's arm or in a burlap sack. Incidents of animal abuse are common and are often seen on social media. News stories about dogs who have been the victims of cruelty are also seen in local newspapers. People have told me that the fear of dog bites and getting rabies is the underlying cause of many of these incidents. I have also been told that when people try to report incidents of animal cruelty to the police, they often do little or nothing, except maybe take the report, called a FIR, or First Information Report. Several legal and non-legal solutions could solve these problems. There is still no comprehensive national law to protect the welfare of animals, an Animal Welfare Act, nor one that adequately addresses cruelty and neglect. Legal solutions to the problems could include drafting new national laws and working with the Nepal Parliament to amend existing laws. In addition, new local ordinances and municipal regulations are needed to manage pet ownership. The Muluki Ain, also known as the National Criminal Penal Code, is the general civil and criminal code that governs Nepali society. The law has provisions in Chapter 5 that relate to offenses against public interest, health, security, facility, and morality. Section 116 prohibits reckless conduct concerning animals and birds, and Section 117 prohibits a person from setting an animal free to another's house or land, or public road or way or public place. Section 290 prohibits cruel acts towards animals. These sections of the Nepal Penal Code are rarely enforced because people don't want to report their neighbors, and the police have many higher priority issues to deal with. In addition, national laws, local regulatory approaches could be used to provide oversight of the dog breeding industry, which might help limit the number of dogs ending up on the streets. In addition to regulating dog breeders, pet shops could also be regulated by either banning the sale of puppies or at least making sure that dogs that are being sold come from reputable breeders who put animal welfare over profits. A new local ordinance in Kathmandu could be implemented requiring pet owners to license and register their dogs. Under such a law, only sterilized dogs would be allowed to roam freely. While not exactly a leash law, it would regulate who is allowed to be off-leash and unsupervised and who isn't. This would help reduce the number of puppies being born on the street and would also preserve the cultural tradition of having community dogs. All dogs would be required to be microchipped and registered with the city. If the technology existed to allow microchips to be read from a distance, then dogs could be identified without physically catching them. Unsterilized dogs would also cost more to register than those that are sterilized, and any unsterilized dog found roaming would result in a fine for the owner. Such a system of microchipping, licensing, and registration could be promoted as a way to help owners find their lost pets instead of making it seem as a burden to pet owners. The fee for licensing a pet would be called a registration or licensing fee instead of a tax. The funds that would be collected could be used to provide services for pet owners. These could include building a dog shelter, establishing a resource information center, and offering vouchers for use at a private veterinary clinic to allow lower-income pet owners to have their dogs sterilized. The training of lawyers in the field of animal law and the training of police officers in the importance of enforcing animal protection laws can both be thought of as quasi-legal solutions to these problems. A new initiative is already underway to introduce lawyers in Nepal to the field of animal law. The idea is to bring animal law into the law schools in Nepal to train lawyers as a way to improve legal protections for animals. The training of police officers about the link between animal cruelty, neglect, and other forms of human violence would also help raise awareness about the importance of protecting the lives of those who are vulnerable in the community, such as the street dogs, and the importance of enforcing the law. One other area where training could be beneficial and is a non-legal solution is the training of veterinarians. Most veterinary students in Nepal receive very little practical training in small animal veterinary medicine, including minimally invasive surgical sterilization of dogs. Instead, most of their practical training is with large agricultural animals in mind, and few go into private practice to care for pet dogs and cats. This is one of the main reasons that people have trouble finding a veterinary clinic close to where they live. Another way to get the police to enforce the law would be to make funding contingent on their effective enforcement of the law. If citizens report that they are having problems getting the police to enforce the law, then funding from central government could be withheld. The formation of a special elite police unit to combat crimes against animals and deal with animal welfare issues in the city would probably also help dog owners keep their dogs. Finally, humane education is an important tool in the non-legal solutions toolkit to promote compassion and kindness toward street dogs. A few of the animal welfare NGOs in Kathmandu have small, informal, humane education programs, but there is no curriculum guidelines and no one is tracking the efficacy of the programs. Mandating humane education in school classrooms could even become a legal solution, like what exists in the US in some jurisdictions, where laws requiring that humane education be part of the school curriculum exist. One contribution that I made was to write and publish a book in 2021. The book was published in Kathmandu and is about a street dog named Sati, which means friend, who becomes the victim of animal cruelty. The story unfolds when she meets other dogs at the rescue center where she is taken, who have had similar experiences being abused on the street by people. In summary, I think that the two most important non-legal solutions to address pet abandonment and animal cruelty are to get the municipal government to take a more proactive role in implementing dog population management throughout the city, and to establish a government-funded municipal animal shelter and resource information center to help the public deal with dogs in the community, regardless of their ownership status. Establishing a law enforcement entity that is specially trained and knowledgeable about dealing with dog-related issues would also be very beneficial. In the US, such groups of specially trained professionals are what are called animal control officers or humane law enforcement officers. Finally, on a positive note, the city of Kathmandu has just launched a major dog population management campaign that aims to spay, neuter, and vaccinate close to 6,000 dogs in certain wards of the city. The program is a partnership between the city and various non-governmental organizations working on street dogs. The program was started after the city began receiving complaints about the lack of a robust dog management program. This is all very good news and signals that the city is starting to take these issues more seriously. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have some questions, and I'd be happy to answer them.